Welcome to Amalgam Hour, the movie and comic podcast. I'm Robin.
And I'm Ray from Into the Night, the Moon Knight podcast.
Yes, we have our first guest on the Amalgam Hour from one of my personal favourite podcasts, all about Moon Knight, which that's obviously just the discussion today. From the thumbnail and the title you've seen, we will be discussing what we want to personally see in the show. And since we have a guest, this will probably be where a lot of people will be watching for you. And it's about Moon Knight, and we randomly have a weird following of Moon Knight. Like, most of the people who follow us are also Moon Knight accounts, which I'm like, I think that's just because of how much work I share and like and everything. So,
Right.
subscribe, because we hopefully are going to have more guests and more discussions about Moon Knight. We have like 17 written down on a whiteboard. Like, definitely talk about this, rank all Moon Knight comics, blah, 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 etc. So, let's jump straight into this. First of all, Kevin Feige's said very little about this show, to what I've understood. He's described it as an action-adventure Indiana Jones type. What's your personal opinion on that? Because mine goes back and forth whether I want a Indiana Jones style adventure or a noir, gothic sort of vigilante story.
Yeah, it was really weird when Feige first announced that. I listened to it and I was kind of like, an Indiana Jones style.
Yeah.
That's something I wasn't really expecting. I do understand where it's coming from because, let's face it, Moon Knight has so many aspects to him, and one of them is that kind of mercenary, but he was in the Sudan or Cairo, archaeologically heavy, with that sort of stuff, and Egyptian mythology as well. So I can see where it's coming from. I personally, I don't mind. I'm excited by it, but I'm just hoping it doesn't focus on like it just being a totally Indiana Jones style show. As you mentioned, I'd love to see a few more of the aspects, like the noir aspects, the detective aspects, the supernatural aspects as well. But certainly to have Egyptian mythology in there as well. I mean, we it's intrinsic, I think, that we need to get introduced with Khonshu and Mark Spector.
So when I first heard that, I thought, well, I assumed they were talking about the entire season being an Indiana Jones type. So I was thinking,
Yes.
obviously set in Egypt. So do you think they'll be telling the origin? So do you think the first episode will be Bushman and Mac Spector on a job? Mac gets killed, and for anyone who doesn't know, that's the origin of Moon Knight. Started off as a mercenary, was killed, and then begged Khonshu for life or fell to his feet. So do you think that will be the first season? Just dealing with that?
It's really hard. Yeah, it's hard to tell. I mean, like the previous two Disney Plus Marvel shows so far have included established characters, so we know them from the MCU movies. There's no need to really set up an origin. With the likes of, I guess, She-Hulk, Moon Knight, and Miss Marvel, we're going to have to get that in some capacity. Now, whether or not they spend one episode or all 6 episodes, or kind of what I like to think they pepper it throughout the season, maybe in flashbacks. Yeah, it's really hard to tell. It depends on, I guess, the showrunner Jeremy Slater and of course the directors, how they approach it. But I don't know. What would you like to see? Would you like to see episodes dedicated to it, or would you like to see a whole season dedicated to it, or would you like to see it kind of flashbacks?
I never even thought about the flashbacks, and that was one of my favorite parts of Charlie Houston's run, was seeing the PTSD trauma flashbacks of showing Moon Knight removing Bushman's face, and that would be a fun sort of counterplay where we get a scene, we cut away, it goes back to Egypt, and we like going throughout the show, you see piece by piece Moon Knight's origin. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, there are benefits to both the ways that you approach it, I guess. There's certainly a benefit of, I'm just thinking of having Oscar Isaac like established Like I can
Yeah,
only just imagine, maybe season episode one, he's already kind of running around scaring crooks and stuff, and he's doing his
yeah,
thing, and then you kind of gradually understand where he's coming from, or they introduce Bushman, and then you gradually understand the relationship they have. So there are good things because by that technique, you don't have to invest a lot of time in the origin, but
yep,
by the same token as well, a lot of fans, I guess, would love to see the. I mean, I'd love to see the origin as
yeah.
well, told well. So, um, and perhaps as well, Robin. Feige was alluding to this Indiana Jones style thing, so perhaps he's alluding to the origin. It might be kind of very swashbuckling. We know Marlene and her father were archaeologically, digging for relics and stuff.
Yeah,
So it might be dedicated to that sort of thing.
yeah. And that's clearly where they're
From
coming from. Like someone heard, oh,
yeah,
they're archaeologists. We can make it like Indiana Jones sort of thing.
yeah,
Which
yeah, yeah,
is a way to look at it because hopefully that means that Marlene's will be a big character in hopefully
mm,
this first season because their relationship, I think, is what like drives the comics for a while.
yes,
Because obviously the villains do, but then Marlene is the reason Moon Knight reacts sometimes. Whether he reacts
yes,
harshly or not so much, or he doesn't
yeah,
solve a problem and that evolves later on. So hopefully
yeah,
Marlene is a well-established character by the end of this season.
yeah. I really love Marlene, and taking nothing away from the other female characters in the Marvel universe.
Yeah,
I mean, they're great, but Marlene is different in the sense that I don't know, she has this strength that I believe like some others, they don't, or they haven't been developed as much. I mean, from the 70s as well. You can say Marlene, of course, she's had that kind of relegated to every scene you see her. She's in lingerie in the bedroom,
of
which is
course,
a
yeah.
very a dated thing. But you see, but also time and time again, you see in the Mensch run, but also in the Mark Spector Moon Knight run, you see how kick-ass she is.
Yeah,
She actually, time and time again, she's the Deus Ex Machina. She saves Mark, or she comes in and she kind of saves the day. So I think she's very, very intrinsic to this like the Moon Knight dynamic.
yeah.
And yeah, I'd love to see her have a big role in it. Yeah,
Of course, I'd love to see like Mark and Marlene back to back, like fighting off a hood of whatever.
yeah,
Because like
yeah,
people are going to be like strong female character. I love it, and I'd love it too,
mm,
especially Marlene, because I love that she doesn't deal like with Moon Knight shit. If Mark's been
yep,
a knob, she will tell
yes,
him, backhand him, and then walk away. I'm like, yeah,
yes,
that's exactly what you should do with a
yeah,
character like Mark. That's why, like,
ex- yeah,
Wasp has always been ruined by, oh, she's the character that got hit by Hank Pym 35
yeah,
years
yeah,
ago. And Marlene's just
yes,
never been like that. It's like,
yeah.
I love it.
You've made it a really good point, actually, as well, because I was about to say one of the defining things for Marlene is that she cops a lot of shit from Mark as well.
Yeah,
Like, what is she doing in that relationship? She, time and time again, she walks away from the relationship, but she's drawn back. Um, so she cops a lot. But you're exactly right. I mean, the Wasp has as well, but it's how they react to that.
yeah.
And Marlene seems to just have this um, uh, endurance, I guess, to be with Mark. It's an amazing thing, and it's just testament to her character, her strength.
You say that just about Marlene, but I think every character that is involved around Mark, whether it's Frenchie or even his butler,
Yeah.
like they're
Yep.
dealing with so much. And I love Charlie Houston's run, as people could probably tell by I've mentioned it about 4 times already. That Frenchie being friends with Mark, but then as soon as Mark steps out of line, he tells him,
Mm.
sort of thing. Where
Yep.
I hope. Now, this is a problem I may have. When reading a Moon Knight book, there is so many characters you have to remember. Whether it's the
Mhm.
people at the cafe, Crowley, the butlers, Frenchie's boyfriend, who I can never remember the name of, Marlin. There's just a lot of characters here, and I wonder whether they're going to simplify that down for both a TV budget and just simplification of the character. If you get what I mean?
Yeah, look, I hope not. Look, one of the
Really?
things I love
Okay.
about yeah, one of the things I love about Moon Knight, and it's funny, I was just chatting with someone a bit earlier on, similar to this kind of subject, is Moon Knight's very much a lone wolf, right? He's very much
Yeah.
if you see him with the Avengers and stuff, he's kind of on the outside, on the periphery all the time. But what I love about Moon Knight is that he does have this network that he relies on,
Mm-hmm.
and he calls them his family as well. Early on in the Mensch run, he actually, within I think one or two issues, he invites Jenna and Ricky and Ray to his mansion, and they know of his secret identity as Moon Knight.
I love
Um,
that. Yeah.
yeah, I believe it's because he's so caught up, I guess, on the red on his ledger. There's a kind of loneliness that he has as a character. So I love this support network that he has, and they're very important to him. I mean, you were mentioning you love the Houston run, which is a fantastic
Yeah.
run, and you see how Moon Knight cocks that up with relationships, with
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Frenchie and Marlene and everything. Um, and that's what I find really interesting. He kind of pushes them away, but he doesn't realize like how much he needs them. I mean, they're there for him. They're his family. That's
Yeah.
what I always see.
At the end of the day,
Yeah.
because and I think, like you said, that they are his family. So when he eventually mentions his family history and even his brother, that shows a completely different side of him, which adds to the villainous
Yeah.
confrontation between them, which I love.
Mm.
So
Yeah, sorry.
I I need to see the cafe though. I need to see an old timey
Yes.
cafe with Oscar Isaac in the middle. You know,
Oh, I would be fanboying all over that just to
of course,
see
yeah,
Jenna's dying. Like, how cool is that? Like, that would be um, kind of uh, just proof and justification that we are finally having Moon Knight
yeah,
on the small screen. We're seeing a live action. It would be amazing. I think I mentioned ages ago, someone obviously it'd be great to see Moon Knight, but to see Crawley, Jenna,
of
Ricky
course,
Ray, I think would be just as exciting. To see Frenchie would be just
yeah.
as exciting as well. Yeah,
And
yeah.
I need Frenchie to be that old. And I know it's sort of a exaggeration, but I need every fourth sentence out of him to have a French line in the middle of it, you know? That's his characteristic. Just little
Yes.
bits
Yeah.
here and there. And don't even get me started on Crowley and how he speaks in the Houston run. I love
Oh,
that
he's
so
so
much.
cool.
The old
He's so
timey,
cool.
suave, sort of
Yeah.
poetic Shakespearean that comes out of his mouth, and then you look at him. And in the Houston run,
Yep.
it's drawn so flies are flying around him.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And
Even
that,
in the Mensch run as well. Yeah.
yeah, that is just such a difference of a character between how they speak and talk. It makes them a character and sets them
Yes.
in your mind, sort of thing. So I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I don't think it is because it can be construed, or you kind of tread that edge where it can be like a caricature,
Of
as
course,
well.
yeah.
Like it's just a really hammy character. But I think, like, if you look at Crawley, for instance, I think he's so interesting, right? So on the surface, exactly as you say, he's kind of this disheveled, flies are buzzing around him, yet he speaks so eloquently. I mean, that says a lot about, I guess, for me, like his insecurities,
Of course.
his overcompensation, his potential shame that he has of his situation now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we do get a little bit of his history along the way. I can't remember which issues, but in the volume one in the Mensch run, and I think he was a salesman. He was
Yeah.
quite well to do. Yeah, he was quite, he was reasonable. He had a family and all. He lost it all, right? Because I think he did a bit of gambling or a bit of drinking, all that sort of stuff, and he lost it all. And so here's a guy that has lost his sense of self-worth, his pride, but what can he do? He can kind of compensate with his speech, and I love it. It's something a bit tragic about him,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's good.
And you've just made me love Crowley in an all different new way, especially when I think about how helpful he is to Mac. He brings him
Yes.
pills, and then even when he is Moon Knight, he's still there with him. So he's still trying to help in some way, and he's not just because you could have done it. Oh, he's the homeless character who hates the world around him and is a quiet, like naive person. But no,
Yeah.
smart, helpful. I like that. I like that about all the
Yes.
individual characters of Mac Spectre's like troop of people around him. All individuals, all actual characters. Because there's so many
Hmm.
like characters that surround the main character that just sort of fade away after a while, and none of
Yes.
them do.
Yeah. No,
They're
they
always
don't. I
there.
mean, like they are like, but even in some points with some of the more recent series, is I know a lot of fans, a lot of loonies, are wanting more.
Yeah.
Like sometimes they have been underserviced. We saw in the Bemis run, which is the latest run, Frenchie was used, but in a weird capacity.
Yeah.
Marlene was, which was really cool as well. I'd love to see them all the time. I mean, I know it's it's hard to fit the cast of thousands in a series,
Yeah.
but to see Jenna, to see how her kids are going, like even Houston had done some really good stuff with Ricky and Ray. I think
Yeah.
I believe it was Ricky was killed off, and Ray ends up working for Mark
Yeah.
as
The
a like a
pilot,
tech.
the new pilot
Yeah,
after
yeah,
Frenchie's retirement. That's such
yes, and
character specific things to happen to them, and it all makes sense.
yeah. Exactly. And there's that whole kind of tension with Ray wanting to work in the field, like wanting to get in the action
Mm.
and Mark's like, no, no, look, just stay out of it. He's trying to protect him in some way. But we see that Ray actually does dive in and involves himself in a lot of the action.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the
Um
main thing I really want is this is what I just thought of the other day. Sorry for that long pause that happened.
that's
My
right.
internet sort of wavered. But
Yep.
I would love to see them characters appear slowly over time. So maybe season 1 is
Yes.
Marlene, Mac, Frenchie, and Crowley. Then the next
Yep.
season, now I'm going to this cafe constantly. And then you introduce all
Yes.
those characters. So maybe it's not such a thing as some characters grow and rightfully drop out of the show,
Mhm.
new ones are introduced that fill in the old roles. So there may not be a fact
Yes.
where you just dump like 10 characters on the viewer sort of thing.
Mhm.
So I think there's a give and take you can sort of do with showing them lots while still being a well-written show sort of thing.
Oh yeah, certainly. And I totally agree with you as well. Marlene and Frenchie would be the core, right? The core kind
Yeah.
of the network. I would love to even see perhaps, I mean, I know this is a stretch, but perhaps maybe in Miss Marvel or She-Hulk, you see Jenna's diner, just there.
I would love that.
That's yeah, so it kind of ties it together. There's no need to introduce her yet, but she's there, and like for any fan, you'd just be watching She-Hulk or Miss Marvel going, "Oh my God, that's Jenna's diner."
Yeah.
Yeah, so that sort of stuff. Yeah, exactly. I'd love to see it slowly introduced. But yeah, well, I guess again, we'll just have to wait and see. I'd just be happy to see them on screen.
Yeah.
Let's just say that.
Oh, I would love that. Speaking about characters we want introduced, let's just talk about the first season. What villain do you want? Because clearly
Oh.
we both want Bushman. If
Yeah.
I don't see Bushman being a refrigerator-sized man compared to man, with the tattoos on his face, hell, even give him the sharp
Yep.
teeth and long, gross
Yes.
tongue, whatever. But who else do you think may be in this season? Because we've got Ethan Hawke as being cast.
We do. We do. Look, I Look, I wouldn't mind as well if they do the slow burn with Bushman, and
Of
you
course.
see
Yeah.
him maybe in the past, in the flashback, and maybe towards the end of the season you see him in present day. Like I wouldn't mind that at all. Only because again, similar to what you said before, it'd be great to build up the character, not just like throw him in there. And he's such an important part of Moon Knight's history. So I hope they pay respect to that and make him like just develop him slowly. With Ethan Hawke, it is a hard one. Like, God, there's so many that I'd love to see. My
Hmm.
first, I gravitate towards only because aesthetics potentially, and that may be a really bad thing to say for
Yeah.
Ethan Hawke, but like Morpheus, I can see
Oh, okay.
Ethan
Yeah.
Hawke as Robert Markham, not as Morpheus the bug-eyed, but like
Yeah.
he does. I think he can carry off that scary, kind of
Definitely can.
unhinged. Yeah, so he's got the build as well. I mean, a lot of people have been speculating whether Ethan Hawke might be a different version of Bushman. I mean, they might do away with, as you were saying, all those traits that you see from the comics and have him as another kind of scary figure. How would you feel about that if they kind of really
I feel like
retcon?
that would be a disservice to Bushman because of how much work has been done to that character and whether I like it or not in the newer
Yeah,
runs. But even reading
yeah,
Charlie Houston's run, where most of what you see is flashbacks of him, I still felt that presence. And
yeah,
changing the character in these small, minute ways might not make me feel as if it's Bushman, if you get what I mean. I may not
yeah,
look
for
at Ethan
sure.
Hawke and go, that's Bushman, sort of thing. And I
Yeah,
need that
yeah,
because he could definitely bring the presence. I love Ethan Hawke in all
yes.
of his horror ventures. And when
Hmm.
he's doing those films, I'm definitely feeling a sort of aggression, insanity. But then I feel like Bushman deserves to be shown as much as
Yeah,
Mag is. Correctfully,
yeah,
I should say.
yeah. Oh no, look, there's bits of me thinking that as well. Actually posited a question to you as well, slightly off tangent, but say for instance the
Yeah.
Netflix shows, John Bernthal as the Punisher. What were your thoughts on John Bernthal as Punisher for one?
I've never actually seen that actor before. I never
Oh,
watched The Walking Dead. So
okay.
every time I see him now, I see him as the Punisher. And I've only think I've
Good, yeah.
watched like 1.5 seasons of it because the Netflix
Yep.
shows didn't like egg me on to watch them as much. I think it's
Yeah, fair
because of the
enough. Yeah.
long episodes, 13 episodes a season. But I
Mhm.
love that character. And every time I see
Okay.
him in the white skull on his chest,
Yeah.
I I don't even like the Punisher that much as a comic fan. But then as soon as I
Yeah.
see that, I'm like, oh my god, it's Punisher in real life. I'm like, oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
you just take that breath away for a second.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, the reason why I asked that though is because look, and this was my honest first reaction when they announced him as
Mm-hmm.
the Punisher and stuff. My initial first reaction, and I know I probably get a lot of flack from people thinking, oh, it doesn't have to be the exact representation, but
Yeah.
for me, like the Punisher in comics is a tank. He's like Bushman.
Yeah.
Like he's big. There's a lot of comments on other characters talking about the Punisher about how big and like just intimidating, imposing he is.
Mm-hmm.
John Bernthal, look, no, he's a terrific actor. He's fantastic, but he's a little bit more. He's a bit more on the wiry side. He's quite
Yeah. I
strong
get
and,
that.
but he's not like built like a tank. And my first impression was, and actually I posted this up somewhere, and I got shot down for it. Actually, I said, oh look, Bernthal announced this is awesome. I think it's great. I said, but like, I just wish he was like bigger because I know the
Yeah.
Punisher's like really big. And then I think someone responded, "Oh, like eyes rolled, this is really old school thinking." But I think there's some credence in it though,
Yeah.
because if you liken it to say, I mean, maybe not so much the Punisher, but like if we're talking about say Spider-Man or Daredevil or Thor,
Yeah.
like
If you
you would not cast Spider-Man um you would not cast The Rock as
Yeah.
Spider-Man. Let's say that
There's a
because we have
certain
preconceptions.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I totally get
exactly,
that.
exactly.
Do you know what that reminds
So
me of?
same with the yeah,
But just to pause you a second, that reminds me of
yeah.
Wolverine. Hugh Jackman playing Wolverine.
Ah,
When
mm-hmm,
Wolverine
mm-hmm.
is 5 foot whatever, barely
Yeah,
5 foot maybe, hairy,
yeah,
a beast of a man, and then Hugh Jackman
yeah.
is he. I think because the guy who plays the Punisher and Hugh Jackman are such great actors,
Yes,
they take me out of what they physically look. Like I no longer
yeah,
care. But then maybe
absolutely.
depending on the actor, maybe you need that largeness sort of thing, where it's like you
Yes,
need them to be this presence.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Hugh Jackman totally owned that role, for sure. And maybe Ethan Hawke. Look, if he is Bushman, like it
Mm-hmm.
might rub a lot of people up the wrong way, but he certainly has the acting chops
Definitely.
to do it. So, we'll see. I guess we'll see how it takes. I mean, like the MCU, Disney Plus, they like to kind of play around with the canon a bit. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
guess we can't expect that that won't happen in Moon Knight. I'm just interested to see what they do with it.
I
Yeah,
have thought
yeah,
of that,
yeah,
but I've thought because I haven't read the old Moon Knight runs, I mean like 2000s before sort of thing.
Mhm.
I don't have this complete and utter stock of villains to draw from. So I think
Mhm.
if they were to start simplifying villains, that would be a disservice to the rest of
Mhm.
them, sort of thing. Do you get
Yeah,
what I mean? If there's only 5
yeah,
villains and you merge 2, there's not a lot you can
yes,
draw from, sort of thing. And I think that just
yeah,
might be
that's true.
where I've naively not read enough, but that's
Mhm.
my opinion.
Well, I mean, truth be told as well, although the Mensch run had a slew of villains, um, realistically, Moon Knight doesn't really have that big a rogues gallery. I
Yeah.
mean, compared to the likes of, say, Spider-Man or Batman or the Flash, Moon Knight has a handful of pretty memorable villains. A lot of them are unfortunately forgettable
Yeah.
in the Mensch run. So we're currently in the podcast doing some classic run reviews, so
Yeah.
everything pre-2000, and there's stuff like the Slayers Elite. They're like a pack of 3 assassins, very forgettable. There's
Yeah.
Arsenal, kind of like a poor man's war machine. He's never made it past 1980.
Mm-hmm.
That's that sort of stuff. But you do have like a handful of really good ones. As you're saying, like there's Bushman, Morpheus, Randall Spector, definitely the brother of Moon Knight. One of my favorites, Stained Glass Scarlet. She's got to be. I hope to see her in there.
Mm-hmm.
She's a very strange. Like, are you familiar with her?
Not really. I know the
Okay, she's
name
a.
because I
Uh,
Google every other week Moon Knight
oh
villain
yeah,
and then just look at all the lists, and she always appears. And just the design of
yeah,
a woman all in red with Mac
yep,
Spector at her feet. I'm like, what's going on there then?
yes. Oh,
Like,
she's
captivating.
very awesome. Yeah, there's an ambiguity to it as well. They have some sort of, it's almost as if they're like soulmates or something, but they don't know it. Um, but she's a nun that and she wanted to be an actor, like in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
She had a very tragic history. She got like a very abusive husband. Husband was a criminal. Husband dies. Her son turns out to be a criminal. She ends up having to kill him. So that really will send her over the edge. So she's very much a vigilante. And she runs into Moon Knight a few times as well. But yeah, she has a kind of love-hate relationship with Moon Knight, and there's this beautiful scene. It's an arc in the comic book, Mark Spector Moon Knight. It's called the Scarlet Redemption,
Mm-hmm.
and she meets up with Mark, and they're on. This is written by J.M.D. Mateus. She meets up with Mark, and he just can't get past her allure and stuff. So they start kissing. She kind of wants him as well. And then she pulls out a knife and she stabs him, and then just hurls him into the river. It's like, God, like,
You've,
can't work this
in
woman
the
out.
past 2 minutes, just sold the character to me. I need to see that now. That remind
Yeah,
like
she's
I would
yeah.
describe that as like a Catwoman or a Black Cat to
Yes,
Moon Knight, that sort of thing,
yes,
which I want to see
absolutely.
now.
Mm,
I'm glad
yeah,
someone finally described the character to me in a detailed explanation that I want to see them now.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we do see her in the TV
I'd love
show.
that.
Um, mm. But I mean, apart from those that I can think of just straight off hand, Black Spectre, of course,
Of
he's a
course.
really good
Yeah.
villain. So that they're about 6 or 7. I guess you could name villains that have lasted the test of time for Moon
Yeah.
Knight. But
Which
certainly not. Yeah.
which I was going to say is just that could definitely fill the show, if you get what I
Yeah.
mean. Because
Absolutely. Absolutely.
we'll definitely talk about the casting of Isaac Oz. Jeez, I'm having a struggle with his name. Oscar Isaac. There you go.
Yeah.
We'll definitely talk about his casting later after we get off this villain discussion that I'm loving. But I don't know how many seasons this show will be getting, if he gets a film or if he appears in another film, that sort of thing.
Well, can I say, Robin, as well? I did. My sources did tell me though. Apparently, Feige did mention that Moon Knight, She-Hulk, and Miss Marvel are all catered towards the TV shows. So I mean, I know Miss Marvel is going to turn up in the Marvels, the MCU film, but apparently those 3 TV shows, it sounds like they might be catered for TV as well. So that's good. Happy days. We might get more than one season for it.
Yeah, I would love that. Because as soon as I heard that
Mm.
Oscar Isaac was involved, I was like, oh no. Are we going to get 1 season, maybe 2, and then a
Yeah.
cameo in films? But now that I've heard
Yeah.
that, like, because even though it probably wouldn't work, I'm like, give me 24 seasons of this show, please.
Oh,
Just
I
put
love
it in my
Yeah.
veins. That's what I want.
Exactly.
Sort of thing.
Rack up the hours. Rack up the hours.
Yeah.
I want like 50 hours of
Yeah.
Moon Knight.
So I can
or
go an
more.
entire week and just watch episode 1 at the start of the week and then watch episode 500 at the end and just thoroughly enjoy it.
Exactly.
But
A
that's
couple of
where the-
matchsticks on the eyelids.
Yeah, that's where the villains come in, where it's like, who's he going to be fighting by the end of that? You know?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I want to quickly shout out my opinion for who Ethan Hawke will be playing. I
Yeah.
think we will get, for the first season, a merge of his origin. So, obviously, there'll be Bushman as the mercenary sidekick sort of thing.
Mhm.
And then there's going to be Ethan Hawke's character, not Bushman, but a side character sort of thing. And we slowly watch him go insane, which relates to Mark Spector's journey. And then he talks to Ra. And he somehow gains fire powers. Do you get what I mean? As soon as I seen Ethan Hawke, I was like, if I were to cast an actor to play the Sun King, I have a feeling it would be Ethan Hawke. Which I think the Sun King is the best thing that came out of that run, sadly.
Yeah.
As well as the relationship between Marlin and one of Mark's personalities and how they had a kid, which was incredibly interesting. That's what season 15 would be. That would be Moon Knight and his kid going on Bucky-like adventures, and she's dressed all in black as Midnight. There you go. This season.
That's so
15.
cool.
But what do you think
Yeah,
of the whole
yeah.
Sun King sort of idea? Because I've pitched that so many times. Because every time someone puts
Well-
on their story or a post on Instagram, I'm like, hey, it could be the
Yeah.
Sun King. And they're like,
Yeah. Well, had you seen that the photo leaked on set of Ethan Hawke?
I have, but I barely looked at it. Because I'm like, I don't want spoilers.
Okay.
Which I'm like,
Okay.
a set photo ain't going to give you that many. So sure, talk about
No.
it. Especially right now.
Well, there is, after seeing that, there is heavy speculation that he is the Sun King. I mean,
Good. Finally,
with-
validation.
without any, without, I guess you can't avoid these spoilers, but Ethan Hawke was seen walking around. He had long hair, very much like the Sun King, and he was wearing almost like a brown robe, like kind of, again, the Sun King was wearing this almost, dare I say, kind of like Jesus-like, I don't know what the garb you call that, but that's what Ethan Hawke was wearing.
I'm looking at it right now, and I'm agreeing with everything you're saying.
Yeah. So heavy speculation that he's the Sun King. Look, we discussed this on our show as well. It could be a total mislead as well. I mean, it's not uncommon if we take, for instance, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who appeared in Falcon and Winter Soldier. They went to extreme measures to conceal her from set. I wouldn't put it past them to dress Ethan Hawke in something silly, knowing that the paparazzi or the photographers were there, just to kind of give a bit of a bait and switch.
Yeah.
But by looking at it, he certainly does look Sun King-esque. There's also been speculation because Brown, he's a bit hairy. He could be Jack Russell. It could be a werewolf as
Oh.
well, which is just so cool as
My
well.
heart just
I'd love
skipped
to
a
see
beat.
that.
Wow.
I'd love to see that as well. But what actually does lead me, Robin, towards this Sun King element is that there was a lot of filming apparently at the Budapest museum. So again,
Yeah.
archaeological,
Mm-hmm.
Indiana Jones, and it ties in with Feige's Indiana Jones comment as well.
Yeah.
So could we be seeing another deity, avatar of Ra, which would be
I don't know, because my problem, one problem with the MCU many people have discussed is, you've got a hero, they go up against the evil version of themselves. But I think the Sun King would be fun as, I like Moon Knight without any powers. I like him being a dude in a white outfit. And then if he goes up against Sun King, and you could be like, oh, where's he get his powers from? Someone accidentally spurts out the word mutant or whatever. Like, no, he's just insane. He believes it's from Ra, whatever.
Yeah.
And it could almost be, you look at Ra or the Sun King and you see a future version of Moon Knight where he's a little bit out of it. He's talking to Ra poetically about stuff. And that could be fun. So it's like a twist on the villainous main character, where it's the main character, but like Ant-Man, but in yellow. Like that sort of thing. That could always be fun.
Yeah, I can see it as well. I mean, again, also as well, I'm just buzzing around with these ideas and discussions that have been had in our community as well. There's some potential. I don't know. It sounds like you may not be concerned about it, but using such a new villain for Moon Knight.
Yeah.
I think what you were saying though, and if they do use him as Sun King, I would love to see it done in tandem with something else. You know what I mean? Like, I think just as a service of yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was. Yeah. Rather than just have it all about Sun King, this new, literally a couple of years old, this villain, this character. It would be good to have, some touchstones to the OG material. Yeah. But I mean, I don't know. I'd love to see Sun King. I wouldn't complain. Like, basically,
we're getting a Moon Knight show.
Yeah.
No one can complain.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? If you are a fan, you're just going to take every single piece of material.
Yeah.
We're going to see
seriously?
a Moon Knight shaped shuriken in the back of a Spider-Man shot, and I'm just going to weep at the knees, sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. I'm about to say, like, if you're a Moon Knight fan and you complain about something that's in the show, like, oh my God, like, you're getting a show. And, whether it is some really nondescript, obscure character, the fact that it is part of Moon Knight, I mean, just be grateful.
Unless the show was completely terrible and failed on every level, I'm still going to be happy with it.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I'm one-eyed enough as well to think that, I don't care. Like, I'm gonna love it. Whether it's crap, like, I'll be buying the Blu-ray. I'll be watching it over and over again. It's streaming as well. I don't care. I'm gonna buy the Blu-ray as well.
I will burn my own DVDs. I will record it with OBS. I want to see it. Oh yeah. While we're on the discussion, any more villains you think you'd want to see? Because obviously we discussed Bushman, Sun King, Stained Glass Scarlet.
Yep.
Any more?
The big one is Black Spectre as well. I think he's such an interesting villain. My eyes were open to him more recently as well. One of the potential loonies, we call them loonies, the Moon Knight fans. Yeah. He reminded me of such a great character, and it's a different bent on the villainy as well, because Carson Knowles, Black Spectre, comes from more of a political background, which I really love, and so that's a different way that this villain can kind of target Moon Knight. He also was an ex-soldier as well, He's been heavily traumatized by war. He's been hard done by society when he's come back, similar to like a lot of the Vietnam vets. You know how they
Yeah,
kind of were
yeah.
disparaged and stuff. So he's got that kind of thing, but he's got this massive grudge. He becomes this Black Knight clad behemoth, and he takes on Moon Knight, and he's actually on par. Like Moon Knight has had massive trouble like defeating him every time. Like he's just stronger, better, faster than him. So I'd love to see the kind of that aspect of Black Spectre.
That would be great because we definitely need to see Mac not be
Yep.
powerful. Like my favorite
Yes.
versions of Mac, where it's like the Taskmaster fight. Taskmaster shooting
Yeah.
arrows at him, and he's just walking. He's just like, nope.
Yeah.
Because you may be able to beat him up. You may be able to outspeed him. You may be able to run away. But
Yep.
he will never stop. And he's insane enough to where there's no way of you getting away. If you get what I mean. And that's what I really want to see. And Black Spectre being this more powerful character, that would certainly do it.
There's sorry.
No, carry on.
Oh no, sorry. I was just about to say a quick note. There's that famous kind of quote from Taskmaster as well, saying that out of all the superheroes, in the universe, he would never copy Moon Knight's fighting style because
isn't it Mark Spector throws himself in front of weaponry, so it's like
he'd rather take a punch than defend it. So Taskmaster just doesn't want to copy that because I love it as well. It's just such a nihilistic kind of way that like Moon Knight goes about, but he doesn't give up as well, which is just fantastic.
Speaking of Taskmaster, since Taskmaster is being introduced, and I hope they don't kill that character off in Black Widow.
I hope not. Yeah.
Please, I want a white cape versus a white cape just fighting.
Oh, how cool is that?
I would love it so much, and just use the Charlie Houston run. That first volume.
Yeah.
Have an organization hire the Profiler and Taskmaster, because I need the Profiler as well. He's one of my favorite villains.
Yes, mine too. I was about to say you're talking about like other villains. I wanted to say definitely the Profile and the Committee. I mean, the Committee are the ones that engage Taskmaster. I love this kind of organization, that has it in for Mark, and they pop up. They popped up before. They were in the Manch run. They pop up again in the Houston run. They would be really cool. But yeah, the Profile is awesome. He is a mutant, but I'm sure they can get away with it somehow. They can just,
Well, that would be a great way to subtly start introducing mutants.
Yeah.
To be like, where's he get his powers from? And then it's like you've got 1,000 YouTubers making mutant in Moon Knight ?
Yeah. I want to give a shout out to one of my good mates in the Moon Knight community. His name's Chad, and he has this theory that Moon Knight is in fact a mutant as well.
Okay.
I just love it. I won't get into the details of why, but he goes for it. Look, Moon Knight is so ambiguous. Why not? He's got some sort of different power. But yeah, the Profile is really cool. Just a horrible man. But he's quite useful. I'm not sure if you remember the issue 14 of the Houston run. It's when Mark goes to get registered because of the
Oh, of course.
Sorry?
Yeah.
No, the Registration Act. He goes and he has a psych assessment with this guy, this psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist is less than your upstanding citizen, but Mark secretly gets a profile to work at it and find out stuff about the psychiatrist, and he ends up kind of tricking the guy, thinking that Mark actually Khonshu is speaking through Mark Spector, because he starts saying, I remember when you were a kid and you did this and you killed kittens and and the guy gets freaked out and he goes, oh my god, okay, here's your card, here's your Avengers card. A fantastic issue, absolute a must read, issue 14.
That would be perfect it would almost be like an evil version of Crowley. Where it's like, this is someone I go to for resources, and then there's the Profiler who does it for
Yeah.
evil means, and he's being forced to. And I need to see, because my favourite panels of the Houston run is where you see Profiler's vision and there's scribblings all around Mark Spector,
Yeah.
like Khonshu, Moon Knight, death,
Yeah.
like Jew, like war, everything just all around him. I need to see that in a like movie sense.
Yeah. He's really good. He's a really good villain, I must say. I mean, like, at the end of the day, if he and Mark go toe to toe, I mean, it's no contest. Moon Knight will beat him. But just the fact that he's so dangerous with his knowledge, and he can work behind in the background, that I find that he's quite interesting. So hopefully, yeah,
and the thing where he can look at Mark and analyze him, but as soon as he puts on the mask, there is nothing, and you see the Profiler panic at that moment, where he's like, "I don't know who you are." And doesn't he like throw up instantly? Like Moon Knight crashes the plane through the building, beats up Taskmaster, and then just looks at him and he just throws up and then like runs away. I think so. I'm like, that is such a great character. I would love to see the volume 1 of the Charlie Houston run just be season 2. Just boom,
that would be. It would be. It would be amazing. I mean, Charlie Houston did massive things for Moon Knight. He really put him back on the map. So I would love to see a lot of those elements. Definitely Taskmaster. We see a bit later on, I think, the return of Midnight, Jeff Wilde in that second run. Very scary. Very he's a very dark villain. He's a great. Actually, you're talking about villains. I'd love to see Jeff Wilde. I'd love to see Midnight. And potentially a reference to his father, Midnight Man. I'd love to see them maybe reference, because they were very early villains as well. But Jeff Wilde was really cool, especially in the 90s with the Round Robin, Sidekick's Revenge, and the Amazing Spider-Man. That was a great run. Bring Jeff Wilde in, because that's another twist. Sorry, Robin, on the sidekick thing. He wants to be a sidekick. Moon Knight kept on saying, "Nah, I don't want you as a sidekick. Go away." And then he gets really disgruntled and he starts going against Moon Knight. I think that's a really great dynamic.
That's like a villainous Tim Drake Robin, and I love it. Now, that's an entire discussion we need to have. First of all, I just want to say, maybe we haven't seen this in Marvel a lot, but Moon Knight goes up against a team of villains. So we just go, what are some Moon Knight villains that are okay, but we can't have an entire season about one of them, you know? Just put a couple together, which that's always been my pitch for an Avengers movie. No, it's Ultron, who teaming up with Abomination, the leader, etc., etc., etc. They're going up against the Avengers, not nameless whatever. And I would love to see that in Moon Knight. But to carry on the conversation, I hate when I see people describe Moon Knight as Marvel's Batman. And I
not get me
started. I get it. I've described him that way as like, quickly, I need to describe this person to someone. He's kind of like a Batman. Kind of like Batman. But he's deeper, in my opinion. Like, obviously, like, Mask of the Phantasm, like, does wonders for, like, the Bruce Wayne character. But every run on Moon Knight is that. Where there's a new layer to this character that I never quite seen before, which is what I want to see.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
Yeah, look, on our show, Into the Night, we have a bit of a running joke. I only allow one Batman reference in the show, and I bleep out every other reference to him. It actually, even to the point as well, I was fortunate enough to speak with Doug Mensch, the creator of Moon Knight as well.
Of course,
and it wasn't part of the interview because I cut it. It was a bit of a chat we had after the talk, and I asked him about this thing about Moon Knight and Batman, and he went ballistic. Like, he was so angry that there's this kind of comparison between the two. And of course you can on the surface level, on the very surface level, see it, and it doesn't help that art wise and stuff, things were emulated between the two. So of course there are comparisons there. But you're talking about really different characters here. I mean,
like,
Moon Knight has no compunction to kill, as well, for one thing.
It's such on a surface level description. It's a guy who's a vigilante, and technically one of him is rich, and he's got a butler. There you go. And he has a plane. He has a moon plane. And I talked to my friend who Dan, the other host of this show, and sometimes he disagrees with me on this, which is like a fun like back and forth we always have. Where he's like, but he has moon shurikens. Like, that's just Batman's weapon, but moons. I'm like, yeah, but Batman, that's just a shuriken. Batman stole that from, like, ninja, like, movies and shows and
that's right.
Whatever.
It's not his.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, exactly.
I'm like,
you might as well argue, like, a sword. You know,
exactly,
swords have been around for ages. So,
it's like, Moon Knight's got a sword, he's Wonder Woman. I can't believe it. It's like, I don't think that's how that works.
Yeah.
And it's like,
no, I totally agree.
But even though I do love to see Moon Knight and like Batman next to each other, like in fan art and drawings and edits and whatever, I'm like, okay, that is nice. I like to see that. But there's some ideas where I had where obviously Midnight, that would be fun to sort of point the finger at Moon Knight and go, you're Batman, and then Moon Knight go, no, I'm not. Do you see this kid that keeps trying to speak to me? And it's just like push him off a ledge practically. Do you know what I mean? Cause him to go down this dark path where Moon Knight never would. Except from like Jason Todd, but that doesn't count.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that is such a defining thing. Like, he tried to get rid of this kid, and dare I say it, like, you know, with a bit of writing at the end of Round Robin, the Psychic's Revenge, he even actually doesn't lament, you know, the death of Jeff Wilde as well. It's like, I never did like the guy. So is very different. But I mean, there's so many different. I mean, he's an ex-merc. He's got the Egyptian ties to Khonshu. He has like the DID. There's so many different things with it. But yeah, I mean, the people are gonna
carry on.
Oh no, just for that, people will, of course, they'll make the comparison.
They'll always make that comparison, and even when the show comes out, I bet I'm going to see videos where it's Marvel's Batman gets a show? Question mark. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And
for sure.
This is where I've come into some flack because I had a discussion with another loony where I was like, Mr. Knight is more Batman than Moon Knight ever is. If you get what I mean. Mr. Knight, he has a Commissioner Gordon. He's a detective. He's on the streets, not flying above it and crashing into buildings, if you get what I mean. He drives in a car, sort of thing. But I'm like, that's why... We'll get into this as well.
Yeah.
Do you want to see Mr. Knight in the show? Maybe not the first season, but maybe the third, the fourth, the 17th. Would you want to see him eventually?
Oh, absolutely. I'm a fan, a big fan of him. I know he's come about very circa 2013, 2014. He's not that old, but I think he adds a lot to it, and I like the idea that he's an addition to the identities that Mark has. He's different. He's on his own.
That's interesting.
He hasn't been
opposite opinion.
Oh, as in.
I like him being a different outfit for Moon Knight. So, depending on what Moon Knight does, he'll have a different outfit. If he takes out a person surrounded by hostages, he'll wear a more stealthier suit. If he's fighting supernatural beings, he'll be covered from head to toe in Egyptian, like, weaponry and stuff. And I need to see that suit. And I bet you have.
I need to see that as well.
Just that punch. If I don't see Moon Knight punch a ghost, I'm gonna be angry.
If it's hanging up somewhere, that's all. I'm happy with that. You know, if it's hanging up in his in his mansion.
Like in the Houston
but oh my
run.
God, that bone armor. Exactly.
Where he walks past all the different suits, and in that run, it's like, it's a white suit, and a white suit with a slightly different belt, and a white suit with slightly different gauntlets. But this, it could be he walks past, and it's Moon Knight, armored Moon Knight, Mr. Knight. And then the supernatural bone armor knight. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh my God.
That's one. Yeah, that's one of the aspects I'd really like them to tap into more, which Warren Ellis alluded to, was that Mark Spector had this treasure trove of relics in his basement that could potentially be used to fight crime. So
Yeah.
so in that issue 3, he ends up, like, I think, confiding with Khonshu, and Khonshu kind of leads him down to his basement where all these relics are, and that's where he pulls out that bird armor. And for listeners that don't know, Moon Knight was up against these ghosts that were kind of ripping him to shreds, and he couldn't touch them because they're intangible. But he wears this bird armor, really weird stuff, and he manages to actually punch them and, like, really maim them.
And that one shot where it's just Moon Knight's fist, and you see the head of the ghost like crack in two, and ghost juice flies everywhere. I'm like, yes.
Exactly. And the beauty of it is that it's just a ghost, so it's not graphic. You know what I mean?
Even if that was, I would love that to be, that story is one episode in the show. Sort of a fillery sort of episode where it's not the main plot, cool. But whatever's going on is in the background, and Moon Knight just does this adventure. Do that.
That would be good.
You could do that entire run in one episode. Have him go up against the slasher in the first scene.
Oh, right. Okay. Right.
Then the next scene is him against the person with the wild dogs, and then it ends with the ghosts. And then you do the... And you know, somewhere in the show, we're going to have the scene where he goes through the entire building, staircase by staircase.
Oh, my God. One of my favorites. Issue 5. Yep. Yeah.
Because
has to be
it reminds me of the Daredevil Netflix. It's like, oh yeah, Daredevil's going to have a fight in a corridor. Be like, Moon Knight's going to go up some staircases. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah. I reckon they lifted it off Moon Knight.
Yeah.
The Daredevil scenes.
I'd love that. Just Mr. Knight, sleeves rolled up, kicks a guy so hard he throws up, grabs another guy's back, smashes him over the face, and then just threatens the guy in the end.
Yeah.
This is it. I just beat up however many. You've lost.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's great.
I love that last bit of that issue where he meets that little girl who's been held hostage. Scarlet is her name. Mm-hmm. And she says something along the lines of, I know this is your real face. Like, and he goes, yep, you understand. You know me. And that's just, it's such freaky dialogue because it's so weird, but it's synonymous with Warren Ellis. And I just love it. That bit of writing is just brilliant. But,
we've gone on a tangent out of just loving Moon Knight comics, which, let's go further down. There's, I think it's that run where he goes up against the creature under the bed. The boogeyman sort of thing. Is that the same run?
No, so that run, 2014, was broken up into 3 distinct segments. So the first 6 were by Warren Ellis. Yeah. The next 6 were by Brian Wood, and the last 6 were done by Cullen Bunn. And I think Cullen Bunn was the one that did the dogs, and he did the boogeyman under the bed. But really, really good stuff. Yeah. That's when Moon Knight had the machine guns, right?
Yeah. Show me that. Yeah. And then when people say, oh yeah, Moon Knight's Marvel's Batman, I'll just show them that image of just Moon Knight with 2 machine guns just firing into a girl's bedroom. You know?
Exactly.
And then that girl looks at him and goes, are you another boogeyman? And he's like, yeah. And it's like, good.
Yeah.
And while we're on that topic, that's one of my favourite scenes. One panel. When the creature goes, Khonshu, why have you forsaken me? Which was said in the beginning of that comic. Which is like, wait, so Khonshu set it up? Sort of thing.
When Moon Knight was broken, like, was at the beginning. Is that the one?
It was
where he's crawling, he's beaten to a pulp and stuff.
And he says, "Khonshu, why have you forsaken me?" And then when he beats up the creature, says the exact same thing. So
it says the same thing.
So I think it's like the Houston run where Khonshu's messing with stuff to get Moon Knight back on board.
Absolutely. Khonshu is such a deviant.
We've talked about every single villain except Mark Spector's main one, the one that lives in his head. Khonshu, I need to see him be evil. I need to see him be the Lucifer behind Mark, sort of thing.
Absolutely. He wants blood. Like, he demands that off Mark. I mean, that's the whole reason why he brings him back to life, so he can be the avatar of vengeance. He can provide the blood for Khonshu. I'd certainly love to see it. And there was some speculation as well that Ethan Hawke may be like a personification of Khonshu. We don't know. Again,
like now, while we're on the topic, we need to talk about the design of Khonshu. because there's been so many
Mm.
designs. I recently read
Yep.
the Shadowland tie-in. I assume
Yes.
you've read
Yep.
that, and
Mm-hmm.
so I came off of the Houston run I came off of where Greg Smallwood drew
Yep.
Khonshu, which is my favorite design. Just a suit,
Yes.
bird skull, love it. And then I read the Shadowland tie-in, and it's a creature hunched over with wings and bright red eyes and a huge beak. And I'm like,
Yes.
there's so many designs, not alone just for Moon Knight, but for Khonshu itself. What would you want to see in the show? Every time we see Khonshu, what do you want him to look like?
Look, it's easy to go for the bird skull because it just seems so iconic.
Mm-hmm.
And that's testament to whoever introduced it. It may have even been Warren Ellis back in 2014.
Yeah.
I think that introduced the bird skull, but it's so iconic. I'd love to see that as well. A close second would be the statue. I mean, we see that a lot. The statue in Mark's mansion. But I mean, as well, let's not forget what you were mentioning about Shadowlands. Khonshu, the real deity, is kind of like bird-like. So so it does kind of lean towards that in Shadowland, albeit a very monstrous-looking bird.
Yeah.
But I mean, I wouldn't want to see that as a bird. Hey, the other one actually as well. The other appearance of Khonshu in the Houston run and in is Bushman. Yeah.
No, I think it all
I'd love
depends
to see that.
what they're going for.
Yeah.
If they're going for mind-bending sort of thing, I think you go for the bird skull design. If you go for the more traditional superhero story, it's just you look at the statue and then you hear a voice. But if you're going for the super insane, why not a guy with no face? You know?
Oh, yeah.
Just Bushman just walking around without the face, which I don't think we're going to see Bushman without the face. And if we see Moon Knight cut it off, it's going to be in silhouette. You're not going to see any blood. That sort of thing. But I'd love to see it. And it's like, I always describe that run as Khonshu is Moon Knight's evil genie. Because if you think about it, from Aladdin, where it's the genie, and he goes from, like, costume to Easter eggs and cameos and all that sort of thing. Because that's what it reminds me of. Bushman, like, Moon Knight mentions the word Nazi, and all of a sudden Bushman comes out in a Nazi uniform without a face. And he's Khonshu, like, speaking. I'm like, there's so many interesting things you could do here with just that design alone. And I would love to see maybe an evolution of it. Like, the first season is the statue. Second season is the statue and Bushman. And then third season is the bird design. Whereas I know it just slowly evolves in Moon Knight's head as he's trying to figure it out and he's going deeper and deeper into believing it, sort of thing.
Yeah.
That's what I want to see.
I think we'll, I mean, you know, can't really guarantee it, but I reckon we must see that Khonshu's statues in some capacity.
Yeah.
You know, whether it is just fleeting or not, seriously, it's got to be there. Like, I'll
so
be a little
into everything.
Yeah. I'd be a little disappointed if it isn't there. And not a big thing. Like, you know, I'd get over it. But like,
I don't think
I'd be a little disappointed.
Yeah, I get what you mean though. It's so important, I think.
Yeah, it is. But that's funny. That Bushman thing that we're talking about, Khonshu, that always reminds me of American Werewolf in London. You'd seen that horror, and his friend, and he just kind of
just slowly.
And it's so weird.
I never made that connection. That's exactly what it would be like. Someone egging him on, teasing him for his failure. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, but it's not only his own kind of psyche that's creating it, but it is Khonshu as well, like just playing with him. So I reckon that'd be so cool. But I like that transition. The development of the statue first, and then eventually having the bird skull at the end. I think it's hard to kind of I guess explain, like, for the lay person that's watching the TV show, like, what is the deal with a bird skull? You know, what is that? You know,
in the comics, it's an evolution. Like in the comics,
Yeah.
it was slowly evolving as time went by, as people were like slowly
Yeah.
changing the design, tweaking it, and then I think we
Yeah.
hit almost perfection with the bird skull, in my opinion.
Yes.
Where it's taken so
I
long
love it.
and it's just boom.
Yeah.
Because I would love that to
exactly.
be, if I get the panel, let's say, because this is my pitch. In season 1, Moon
Yeah.
Knight is his alter egos are Jake Lockley, Stephen Grant. Season 2
Mhm.
is, are these just your alter egos, Mark? Like that sort of thing. Where he's blacking out, he's losing time. And then
Oh.
I'd love the final season to be where, like, we have to give a send-off to Moon Knight. Like how Captain America got old and Iron Man died. Oscar Isaac doesn't want to do these films anymore. I would love to see Mark deal with his DID, and then if I get that shot of Mark Spector walking up to Khonshu, placing his hands on either side of the bird skull, and then crushing it as he's going between all of his personalities, I'd weep. You know, like that's not. You don't need to kill Moon Knight. You need to give him a happy ending. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah. I totally understand. There's like almost like an inner closure that he has, and that inner peace that he finally finds. I think that's one of the most beautiful things that came out of that Lemire run as well.
Yeah.
You know, and it ended, and a Smallwood run, and it ended with it raining and him just kind of looking up at the rain and just kind of very cleansing. I think that's a really cool thing. There has to be some sort of resolution with Khonshu, I believe, because it is such a crux to him. It's the thing. It's the thing that really pecks away at him. He's already got a lot of guilt from his mercenary days and the stuff that he has to do, but Khonshu really does kind of embody all the bad stuff that Mark. It basically he's saying like Mark's trying to atone for what he's done, but then you got this guy Khonshu saying like, come on. You know, do all that stuff. You got to do that for me.
And I love that as like the inner voice we all have, where it's like, where it's just like, do that. It's like, why would I do that? Because because the random voice in the back of your head said you could. That's what I want him to be. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in this instance though, it's Khonshu's kind of like saying, I brought you back. You know, you owe me. You've got to do this for me.
It's like if you had debt with the voice in your head.
Yeah.
If you get what I mean? Where it's like, oh yeah, you're holding a knife. You could like do something. It's like, but why would I? And it's like, because you owe me. And it's like, oh.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I need to see that.
I know. Yeah, it's such a bind. Like, you know, and so this is the thing that kind of really, I think, is at the core of what is eating away at Moon Knight. And time and time again, you see it. Like you see it in the Houston run, the Benson run. I'm rereading a bit of the Greg Hurwitz run as well, and that's definitely in there as well. About just him, he's really trying to atone. He's kind of like Black Widow in the sense, like get rid of that red on his ledger, but he can't escape it because he's got someone barking in his ear, saying, "No, I demand more. I want more."
That's a question I have for someone who's read. Have you? I'm guessing you've read most of Moon Knight or all of it. Yep.
All of the title series. I'm sure he's popped up in some cameos here and there. I haven't read all of them.
I love that. If you go through my Comixology wish list, every single comic Moon Knight has appeared in. It's like Iron Man and Moon Knight in small little text. And it's like random Secret Avengers tie-in that Moon Knight's in. Deadpool. No, there's a Deadpool what if, and Moon Knight appears in one panel. It's just there. I'm like, I'll get that one day. And I have no clue where I was going with that. A question. Was Khonshu always like that? Was he always the villainous, like, devil on the shoulder? Or was he or did he start off as just a helper, a protector, almost? That's a question I have.
Yeah. So I'm just while you were asking that, I was just casting my mind to the early Moon Knight issues because Doug Mensch really didn't tackle that. Like his first appearance was Werewolf by Night 32. then 33, and then there was some backup issues, backup stories in the Hulk magazine, and he popped up here and there, you know. But Mensch didn't really start kind of galvanizing his origins, I believe, until he started that the Moon Knight Volume 1 run in
Oh,
1980.
okay.
He started kind of really kind of understanding it, and he did away with Moon Knight having powers from being bitten by a werewolf and stuff. He
Yeah.
decided to go for this Egyptian thing. And I believe the early iterations of Khonshu was very much like unseen. It was literally just a statue, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Mark has this kind of unflinching. He has this good relationship with it. He has this unflinching faith towards it, and he
Yeah.
has this devotion to it. So Khonshu, in the sense, I mean, you only get shots of the statue, and there's a little bit of ambiguity as to whether Khonshu is directing, you know, some
Yeah.
some um some actions and some scenes. But for the most part, Mark is very devoted to
That's
the
interesting.
god.
Yeah.
Yeah, to the point where even the early comic, what happens, I think one of the villains, I believe it's Bushman or the Midnight Man, they steal the statue from Mark's
Yeah.
mansion, and he loses his shizzle. Like he crumbles, he becomes a heap. He's almost like becomes really depressed. It's kind of like he's lost his light, he's lost his guiding light. So Conchu was very much like seen, I believe, like very benevolent. Um,
That's
yeah, and
interesting.
he doesn't. Yeah, he doesn't really become. I mean, even Volume 2, which is the Fist of Khonshu, that was more these high priests. It wasn't really Khonshu
Mm.
in general. Um, but yeah, I think he slowly developed being a little bit more malevolent as he went across. But initially, no, he was very much
That's
a
super
um,
interesting. Now that you've said
mm,
that, I
mm,
feel like half of season one or even season one would really benefit from showing how, like, put a light on like faith and maybe like addiction to
yeah,
said faith sort of thing. If you get what I
hmm
mean, that'd be.
yeah,
And
yeah, for
then that
sure.
it's like, why does Moon Knight do? Why does he go out and fight? Because he's this
Yeah,
addicted to this person in his ear constantly. That's interesting. I'm
yeah,
glad I asked you that, because that's
yeah,
really bringing an
yeah,
entirely new like idea to Khonshu. Because if you read the new stuff, he's
yep.
always shown as a villain, or he's shown as a wacky
Oh,
sidekick. There's like no in between sometimes.
oh yeah. More recently, we're seeing the Age of Khonshu. So he was in the Avengers. Jason
Yeah,
Aaron wrote that, and Khonshu
yeah,
was, off the wall bonkers, and
yeah,
so yeah, he's certainly changed from when he started.
yeah. That's
Mm.
interesting. So now I want to sort of talk about like different comics and what could possibly we see in the future. Now this is some
Hmm.
stuff I've heard, because especially from Dan, my other host, who's read the Lemire run almost religiously. He's
Oh,
discussed
cool.
about how, um, what if that was just a season? Moon Knight
Wow.
in the asylum, dealing with that. And then that made me think that would kind of be like the One Division sort of thing, where it's
Oh
like
yeah,
a person
yeah.
trapped in a fake reality and these little things are coming in and breaking through and stuff. And I just want to get
Yeah.
your opinion on that.
I think it's really good. I mean, like the thing though with the Lemire run, and a lot of people ask, like some like, you or casual fans of Moon Knight,
Yeah.
where should I start? What should I read? And I tend to hold off on the Lemire run only because it
Yeah.
it it gets really into the character. And if they did recreate that in the TV series, I think a lot of people would probably be confused, unless of course you are a Moon Knight fan.
Yeah.
But by the same token, I mean, it could be like Legion, in that sense, and
Yeah.
just be a really kind of off the wall, surreal trip. But I think there's definitely a lot of merit in the Lemire run and the Smallwood run, of course, but it's something that needs to be kind of eased into.
Yeah. Maybe built upon
And
like
it's
that's the last season, whatever, like dealing
yeah,
with the character acts and all this sort of thing.
exactly. And once you know Mark Spector is this character with all this mental baggage, once you know
Mm-hmm.
that he's struggling with Khonshu, then you can start exploring this thing where he kind of wakes up in the asylum and he's in New Egypt as opposed to New York, and he's got Dr. Emmert, who's like a god as well. You know, all that sort of stuff. Otherwise, it's a bit too complicated, I think.
Yeah, you would need to set up the relationships with all the characters as well, so when they appear in the asylum with him, you go, wait a minute, that's Crowley, and then you're like, no, it's this Rand, like, there's an actual Moon Knight outside that we always see on the Moon Knight screen. But the problem with that, I feel like, with the Lemire run, I always felt like they could technically say it was all in Mark Spector's head, if you get what I mean. Because it's comics, the Sentry, he was just put into Marvel Comics. Like, he was thrown in. Like, you're straight in the deep end. No, he's always been here. And because it's a small universe, but then with the Lemire run, if you did that in the MCU, it's like, well, we know. Do you get what I mean? We know this can't be all fake, but maybe if you show, like, well, you've never seen, like, Mark Spector in the outfit without the mask on sort of thing, which we know we're gonna. But, like, you could play with that, and there's some tricky stuff you could do, but like you said, you do have to build up on it. Otherwise, I think it would fail.
Yeah, I think if anything, we might get bits and pieces from the Lemire run, maybe like little nods and references to it. But I would, again, like any Moon Knights, I'd love to see a recreation, an adaptation of that.
Direct adaptation where you can go, this scene is that panel. Yeah.
Yeah.
Still love to see
exactly. Who doesn't want to see Crowley, you know, on a raft with Anubis in the cosmos?
Yeah.
You know? Be awesome. Yeah.
Speaking of that, I need to see some direct imagery from the comics. Whether it's Moon Knight just floating through a skull covered in mushrooms out in deep space. Just a completely like that would give me like Doctor Strange sort of vibes when they do like wacky sort of bonkers, but this would be even more. Where it's like I don't even know what I'm looking at, and then it slowly pans out and it's a skull with like one speck of Moon Knight in the middle. Like there's some stuff I'd love to see at that point.
Oh yes. Oh, I'd love to see. You see it all across a lot of the runs where Moon Knight, like a hero shot, where he's like on his glider. You know, he's on his cape glider, and his cape is like a crescent moon.
Yeah.
Like, I just love to see that. That would be cool.
That.
Yeah.
And you probably agree with me. The moon copter, we need it, don't we?
Oh,
we need it.
The later one, not the early ones. The early ones
where it's like an actual
tragic.
Like, my favorite panel is he's fighting people flying through the city. There's like a small group of them, and he's in his plane like it's almost like a kite. Like when he's strapped into it and he's just flying around. And then someone looks up and goes...
the glider.
Yeah,
like
the glider as well, I need to see that. And they look up and go, where's he gone? And then the moon moves from the sky because it was actually his glider.
That would be so...
Like, oh my
that would be
God.
so cool.
Like, you've done
That's very cinematic.
Yeah, you've done an entire video about Moon Knight vehicles and stuff.
Yeah.
What would you want to see? Like, if you could just be like, give me this. What's one thing you want?
Absolutely. I'd love to see. Actually, I don't mind. The Houston run did revamp one of the older designs of the Mooncopter. I'd love to see that. But also in the 90s, there was he had kind of like a moon. It was the Angel Wing. So it was almost like a sideways crescent dart, a crescent moon. So it looked a little bit cooler. It was like a jet. You know, shaped like a crescent. Definitely love to see that, and I'd definitely love to see the Mr. Knight limousine, which
that is in my notes. Voice controlled limo. I need it. The license plate
cool is that?
Full white. So when
it's like a palace in there. Exactly. It's like so big.
Yeah, I'm like this. My thing is always like, I bet there's not even a driver's seat if it's voice activated. So he's got the entire like inside just to himself, and no one ever goes in. It's just him. It's just him having a fun old time in there. And I'm like, I need that.
Exactly.
If I just get a
for
set,
sure.
if I got a set photo of a white limo in a really terrible dark neighborhood, I would go weak. Like that would be amazing.
And it's easy to do as well. It's not like they have to recreate a jet or a mooncopter. They just get a limo
It's
and
not
have
like the
exterior
Batmobile
shots.
where it's like, oh, what design are we gonna choose? Oh, what weapons is it gonna have? It's a limo. You paint it white. Easy.
Yeah. I just like the fact as well. It just plays to that thing of like, I want to see them. I want them to see me coming. You know, because it's not exactly the most discreet car. You know,
that's why I'm like, oh, like Batman drives around the corner and keeps his Batmobile there, so only like a thug will see it every now and again and run in horror. Or Jason Todd will steer the tires. Moon Knight's like, nah, just park at the front. It's all right.
Yeah, exactly.
It's fine.
Exactly.
Go through the wall. I don't care. I'm just gonna. I'll do my thing.
Exactly. I mean, so definitely the limo, but also, I mean, as well the copter. But I mean, I'm going for broke here. But the likes of his glider as well, just very gadgety stuff. I'd love to see. So he has two versions. He has one that you mentioned that was almost like a what do you call it? Sailing, like a like so he's underneath it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he also has another one which is kind of like the Green Goblin. He has like one that he stands on, and he kind of like can ride around. So I'd love to see both of them.
I love that. I want, for lack of a better term, the Moon Cave, where it's there's a glider by there, and there's a glider there, and a limo there, that sort of thing.
But you know what will happen? We'll get comparisons with Batman again.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. Oh, do you know what you do? Just a really nice garage. Just there you go. There's all of it. And it's got to be, it's got to be a pure white garage, like so clean you can see your face in it, and then a glider in the back, and he's like, and then right in the middle there's going to be a cab. And you just fair enough.
Of course.
Oh,
that's one of the things as well, like a yellow cab. That would just set me off. I mean, it's funny, during the Netflix runs, we were having fun as well, especially in Daredevil Season 3, because there were a few cabs there, and we were always speculating, oh, that could be Jake Lockley.
Yeah, you see a guy wearing like one of those old hats, and you're like, oh!
Yeah,
like that would be all over. That's why I assume. Have you read Ultimate Spider-Man?
Yes, the Moon Knight bits, not all of it. Yeah,
that's exactly what I got as well. And then it's like, you just see the camera slowly zoom onto a cab and just into the window, and then it goes to his like little driver's license. And I was like, oh my god,
cool.
That would be great. Just in something random, you know?
Yep.
Oh,
you need Oscar Isaac with a moustache, just on Miss Marvel or She-Hulk.
Great. Do that as well.
He looks fine. Yeah, and just have him just in the background, and that's Easter eggs all around for everyone.
Now you've got it in my head, so every time I see a cab in the MCU, I'm going,
is
that
you've got to.
Just trying
got to look out for him.
Yeah, I'm like physically trying to move my head to see if I can look into the window. It's like that's not how that works, but okay.
Exactly.
Because what
the physics doesn't work. Yeah.
Is it Stephen Grant? Is he the rich one? I always have difficulty with the names and pairing them to the personality sort of thing. What is his...
Stephen Grant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's his industry called? What's his, like, occupation sort of thing? Because I know in the Houston one, it's like, you made a couple of good, like, dealings and bets and stocks, so you just have money. But then I know...
it's...
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit nondescript. I mean, like, the big thing in the Mark Spector Moon Knight run was Spectre Corps. So that was, I believe, run by Mark Spector. It wasn't Stephen Grant. Okay. But Stephen Grant's had these things in the Bendis run. He's had a TV studio or a film studio as well. Yeah, I can't for the life of me remember the name of his company, but it's very nondescript. I mean, even in the Bemis run as well, it doesn't really dwell on it, but there's a lot of shares being divvied round, and there's a lot of corporate meetings, but you don't know what he really does.
Whatever they decide to name it, just show it in the background. You know, we'll be watching Fantastic Four, and this huge building with a 4 on it, and right next to it is a really small building that has a little moon logo on it. You know what I mean? Like that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's there because why not?
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
Well, I tell you, I was desperate that when I watched Doctor Strange, there's that the scene where the city kind of goes upside down and inside out and everything like that. There's one scene where there's this high rise, and for the life of me, I thought it said Spectacle, and so just like you go back and maybe if you have the Blu-ray, just check it out as well. It looked a little bit like it. I think to this day, I still believe it. In my head canon, at least, it was Spectacle, but
and they
it's hard to say.
They've done stuff like that before. Where
why not?
Where it's like, oh yeah, there's a kid in an Iron Man mask in Iron Man 2. That was Spider-Man. So they just throw all these little things in.
Exactly.
It's like you could be like, oh, where does Stephen Grant work? Oh, he works at Stark Industries.
Exactly.
He works with Pepper Potts. Why haven't we seen him before? Because we didn't need to see him before. That sort of thing.
Exactly. The universe is so big. Yeah. Like it's just, that's the beauty of the Marvel universe. It's it's such world building stuff that you could easily drop him in anywhere.
Like he can be talking to Khonshu, and Khonshu can mention Sorcerer Supreme and all that sort of stuff.
How good is that? Yeah,
because it's
Loki.
It's because it's a universe now. That sort of thing. Yeah, and I have to discuss this because there's a couple of. Sometimes there's just one or two issues that I love. The Shadowland tie-in I love. For the setup of Max Spector and then Randall Spector, who was introduced to me in that comic. Some of Max Spector's past. And I've talked to this with Dan, and where it's the moon crescent off the statue. And he's got to get this to the Beast to save Daredevil. And instead, he throws it through Randall Spector's neck. And it decapitates him because he's got no more Moon Knight shurikens left. And I'm just like, that's great. I would love to see that. We probably won't get that, but I'd love to see that.
Nah.
And something else I would love to see. They are introducing this character. His character's wife will be in Loki. Kang. One of my favourite issues of Moon Knight is Moon Knight Acts of Vengeance, I think it is. Acts of Evil.
Acts of Evil, with Kang,
Just a really short story. Just fly through it. And I love it so much, which I'm like, Kang's being introduced. I used to love all the short films they used to do for the MCU.
Oh, yeah.
Where it connects stuff. And
they've kind of dropped that off, haven't they?
Yeah. Because like one of my favourite ones is just showing what Phil Coulson did on his way to Thor 1. He stops off at a gas station and beats some people up and then just buys like whatever.
Such a cool fight scene.
You introduce Kang in in Ant-Man 3. He becomes an Avengers level threat, whatever. During that happens, just release a little Moon Knight short film. Where it's just Moon Knight going through time and meeting all the other Moon Knights. Because some of those, Viking Moon Knight, oh my god.
Cave Woman Moon Knight.
Yeah,
great.
Just the simple, isn't that the simple mask? And then she get all the items and like fold them in on herself into nothingness to where she will always be trapped.
Some weirdo thing like that,
I'm like, I've never met this character before and I feel for them.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
And
absolutely.
I always love the idea of what if we see another Khonshu worshipper? Because it's like, well, it can't just be Mac. It's a god, and then it's like maybe there's a couple. Maybe you see the one before him, the one that would be great. And
sorry.
I don't know if you know, but I dabble in indie comic writing. That's my thing.
Nice.
So I've wrote entire comics about Moon Knight, which I'm like, if I'm ever big enough to go, hey Marvel, I have a pitch. This is it.
Yes.
And in my run, it was this is just an idea, like just coming off, like just throwing ideas out, sort of thing. I did a thing where it was like Moon Knight meets the Moon Knight before him. And it's this old withered man who completely hates life. And you show what Khonshu did to him as well. Where it's like, no, Khonshu will always do this. When you die, Matt
Yeah.
Spector, he will carry on. When your bones are brittle, he will carry on to ruin someone else's life. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
that's an idea and a half, in my opinion. Where it's
That's
just
such a cool idea.
where it's from the idea of like seeing all the other Moon Knights. Because in the Acts of
Yeah.
Evil story, it was more like we just see them. You know,
Yeah.
we see World War II with a small like Captain America like gun with the like helmet on, that sort of thing. And I'm like, that's cool. We see Western where it's a bandana. I'm like, that's cool again. Like, that's just fun images. But then I think there's something about that. Because we've met other like Khonshu worshippers in the Avengers run. Where it's just like random people who just all of a sudden randomly like Khonshu.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. And I think that's an idea we could, like, the show could play on, sort of thing. But that's a little bit off topic, sort of thrown around.
No, but I think that's certainly something certainly worth looking at. I mean, it was ever since Moon Knight has been introduced now as a legacy character, and of course, why not? I mean, like, I'd never thought about it before, but Bemis had set that up as well. And like initially, I was kind of like, oh, you know, they're doing that with Ghost Rider, Iron Fist, Black Panther, Phoenix. They're doing that. Oh, do they need to do that with Moon Knight? But at the end of the day, why wouldn't Khonshu be looking for another avatar?
Exactly.
Like, why would he single out Mark in the 70s and 80s and just have him as the one and only avatar? There have to be others.
And
so I like that idea. Yeah,
and that works in the MCU as well, because we don't know if there was a Ghost Rider before the one we're gonna meet. Do you know what I mean? We don't know if Odin was on Earth and he was the Thor stereotype, that sort of thing. So it's like, if you add a legacy, because I've always thought of this, I was like, I want to see a flashback with Captain America stand by side with Wolverine in the MCU, because in Wolverine's backstory, he was in World War II. He was in World War I.
I know. How cool is that? Yeah.
I would love to see those two characters next to each other. And now that I've thought of this idea, I'm like, yeah, but what if there's also a guy in white right next to them? Do you know what I mean? Where it's like, you could add him to the MCU, and it could be like, why haven't we seen him till now? Why haven't you seen any of the heroes until now? Captain Marvel. Why haven't we seen her? She was doing other stuff. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, you could even take it further as well and say, because we know Khonshu's desires and stuff for an avatar eventually. You could actually have one of the Moon Knights be like a really bad character, like be a real faithful to Khonshu and be an avatar of vengeance, spill blood.
Gave in. The morality.
Yeah, exactly.
Broke. Oh, I like that.
Exactly. Why not? Yeah, I mean, why does he have to be a hero? So that's I think it'd be so cool. There's so much. Exactly. There's so much you can do with it.
Because we've obviously seen what Ra and the rest of the Egyptian gods do, and they do the exact same thing as Khonshu. Egg on, tease, annoy, all of this. But it's like, if it wasn't Mac, who would it be? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I've always had, since What If is coming back in Marvel Comics now, I've always had the idea, like, what if Khonshu went to someone else?
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? I've always liked that idea of just what that could mean.
Yeah. It's so funny, like, you're mentioning it, because I was just reading just yesterday one of the Vengeance of the Moon Knight issues, issue 5.
Yeah.
And there's this exchange with Khonshu and Mark, and Khonshu again being a bit of a dick to Mark, and he's going, look, what have you done for me lately? You're meant to serve me. You're meant to, give me blood. He goes, that Frank Castle, he's doing great. He's like, I should probably get him as an avatar. And Khonshu was saying, like, I could easily just like dump you and get him instead.
But then
that sort of,
I think that's the hypocrisy and what shows Khonshu's been as an idiot. Because imagine if he did go to Punisher. Punisher would be like, hell no. Like, I don't want whatever you're selling, sort of thing. And I always like that idea where it's like, obviously Khonshu has gone to other people and like spoken to them to get stuff to happen. But I'm like, you have to be an idiot to fall for what Khonshu is selling. And Mac Spector is. So he can't just go to Frank Castle, sort of thing. So I just love that as a character. That's why Khonshu's one of my favourite villains. And I describe him as a villain for that reason.
Yeah. Yeah, look, and I think as well. I mean, again, the argument can be, oh, but that kind of dilutes the importance of Mark Spector as Moon Knight, because if anyone could be Moon Knight, then what makes Mark special? And I think the fact that he does have these mental problems,
Yeah.
really does set him aside. Why did Conchi choose him? Like, he's not, for want of a better word, he's not unbroken, or he's not. There's nothing. He
Yeah.
he does have his baggage. So, yeah. So what makes, I think, Mark special as Moon Knight is that he has these things, that potentially influence him to go against Khonshu.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and yeah, I think that's an interesting fact. I mean, there was also as well that argument that, uh, the beauty of Mark Spector's Moon Knight is that there's this ambiguity as to whether Khonshu really exists or not, whether
Exactly.
it's all
Yeah.
part of Mark's head. Which I think is a really beautiful idea as well. But, I guess you have to choose as a writer or whatever. You have to choose to go
I would
one road
much
or
prefer
the other.
that, because the
Mm,
problem I had with the Avengers run, where it's the Age of Khonshu, where I'm like, so Khonshu's real because he just
yeah,
gave power to Moon Knight. Do you get what I mean?
yeah,
That's why I want to see a
yeah,
powerless Moon Knight where Khonshu doesn't interact with
yeah,
anyone else.
yeah.
So it's still
I agree.
ambiguous. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, no, totally. It kind of it dispelled any sort of, friggin' allure of the character of Khonshu when he's
Mm-hmm.
just like, okay, he's a deity, and at the moment right now he's in a prison on Asgard somewhere because
Yeah. And I'm like, oh my
um,
god. And then you cut
yeah,
back to like Charlie Houston's run, where he's like taking off someone's face and he's like in a depression in
yeah,
a wheelchair sort of thing. And it's like,
yeah.
how did we get from here to here? But the
That's chalk
problem
and
is,
cheese.
we
Yeah,
can do stuff where it's like, oh yeah, in the 90s, like before that, it's like Mac Spector loving Khonshu. And then you cut to the run where Mac gets rid of Khonshu. And you're like, oh, that's a slow evolution. But then that
yeah,
evolution is just something was going on, and then we cut it off midway because Aaron wanted to randomly write about Moon Knight and give Moon Knight
yeah.
the Phoenix Force. Which I'm like, that's
Oh
an
yeah,
awesome drawing, but I
yeah,
didn't want that for Mac. That sort of thing.
yeah. I look, for want of like paraphrasing what I've read as well, and what other people have speculated about the writer. Look at it. And I don't want to like disparage anyone as well, but
Yeah.
um, but look, with some of the modern writers, it seems that they just want to outdo each other with like these fantastic
Yeah.
ideas. Like, so the Aaron run had some cool ideas. Like, they're good premises. Like,
Mm-hmm.
how about Moon Knight gets the spirit of vengeance and he becomes a Ghost
Yeah.
Rider? I mean, that
Cool.
happened.
He
And
collects all the legacies.
yeah,
That's awesome.
one, yeah, well, he gets, yeah, that's cool. And why doesn't he get the Phoenix Force? That's cool as well. But like, I think as a reader, for myself personally, I want
Yeah.
a bit more than that. I mean, they're kind of like bells and whistles, and they're fun
Yeah.
ideas, but you've got to have a really good story behind it, and you've got to really stand behind what you're going to do. And it just seemed that by having Khonshu real and having Moon Knight go against the Avengers and against the whole world, it was just really bombastic, and it
Yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
really
I
it didn't
think
really have
Aaron
any lasting
only
effects.
focused
Yeah,
on his story he wanted to tell. He wanted to tell
yeah,
about the idea of the Phoenix Force going to the Avengers and dealing, like,
yeah,
that's the big climax. And he didn't
yeah,
care what he affected along the way.
yeah,
Which I think
yeah.
that's going
Totally
to be
agree.
the only problem I have in the new Moon Knight book that's coming out. That
Mm-hmm.
in the description for it, it says dealing with the events of Age of Khonshu, which I'm like, I know you have to deal with them,
Yeah.
but
I'm
I didn't
hoping
want
I'm
that.
hoping it's a very incidental
Yeah.
dealing with it.
It's like, oh, why is
Yeah.
Khonshu back? Oh yeah, because no Asgardian prison could contain me. There you go. Boom. That's all you
Yeah.
need to say.
Yeah, that's it.
Done.
Well, it also mentions about it being very street level as well, and him setting up the midnight mission. So it does
Yeah.
sound grounded in that street level. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
hoping it does stick to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Moon Knight is perfect because he's street level, but if you throw a ghost in there, it perfectly fits. Because
Yep.
I assume you've read the Doctor Strange Damnation
Oh, yeah.
series.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm like, I was reading it and I was like, well, I don't even understand what's going on here. Because I didn't care
Yeah.
about the Mephisto characterization. Doctor Strange, I
Hmm.
never read the story where Las Vegas gets destroyed. Was it
Mhm.
Las Vegas? Yeah, it was, because
Yes.
Mephisto
Yeah,
makes a
Las Vegas.
casino.
Yep.
And then Moon Knight, like, is just there. And,
Yeah.
like, I love how in
yeah.
that story, he goes to pick up Mjolnir. He thinks he's done it, and then it throws away. I'm like, was that setting up Aaron? Was that, like, some crazy, like, later on story? And then it's like,
Oh, wow. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then it's like, oh, and then in this one, it's like, oh yeah, Moon Knight threw Mjolnir through Mephisto's chest. Yeah, he just
Yeah.
got Mephisto off the table. Which I'm like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
him when he's cutting off faces and dealing with DID. I don't know what that is.
Look, if we just dwell a little bit on Damnation, if you look at how Mr. Knight was depicted there by Donny Cates compared to the Warren Ellis run, it is, oh my gosh, there's daylight between both of them.
All you need to
he
do
becomes this
was read a book. You needed to read one graphic novel with Mr.
That's
Knight
it.
in, and you understand the character. But it's like writers like, where's Moon Knight right now? Oh, he's doing this.
Yeah.
But now he's doing this. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
That's why I've never read the Bendis run.
Oh, actually, it's funny. Like a lot of fans hate it and stuff.
Yeah.
I would urge you to read it. Look, one of the things I love about Moon Knight as a whole is that if you look at each and every one of the volumes, they are markedly different to each other. You know, there are some common threads to it, which is fine. But you know, if you get a Moon Knight fan complaining that the latest volume is nothing like the one that was last, well, you know, where have you been the last like 50 years? I mean,
wait a year or two.
Like that all the time.
Wait a year or two, and you're going to get another one completely different again.
Exactly.
Exactly. That's what I hope this show doesn't do. I hope it doesn't change the comics to where someone go, oh no, Moon Knight's got a show about him. We can't do experimental things. We've got to be like standard Spider-Man stories. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
I hope so too. Not very much as well. I mean, it is hard to not have the TV show and the popularity influence the comics, because we've seen it. I mean, they take leanings. Look at the Zdarsky run of Daredevil. It's a great run. I love it, but you can see where it takes stuff from the Netflix show because it was so popular. If Moon Knight, the TV show, is popular, then I think without a doubt there'll be some influence in the comics.
Yeah, where it's like, oh, Frenchie's back as the pilot and etc. And it's like, I'm okay when it's with just designs, like Gamora's design in the comics. Oh, that's changed to be more like. But then then you look at Star-Lord in the same book. Before Guardians of the Galaxy, completely different design and completely different personality.
Yeah.
Sort of thing, more stoic, more action hero. And then it's like, oh yeah, but Chris Pratt played him in a film. And then it's like,
so now he's very
dialogue, quippy dialogue, funny, cartoon, that sort of stuff. And I hope that's not what happens to.
I hope so too.
Moon Knight.
Yeah, and I think that is such an important note to highlight, because that could potentially be a reality. But I just totally hope it doesn't. I hope we still get the same Mark. Look, Mark Spector has a dry. Look, I like to see it from the Mensch run. He has a very dry humor, so it's not like he's totally serious. He does make quips here and there, but he's not like Spider-Man or Deadpool or anything like that. He is more of a very deadpan.
It's
sort of thing,
and almost sadistic. Like when he's going through those staircases and he's like, oh, I'll have this, thank you, and then breaks the guy's hand to get the bat, and it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
This isn't Batman.
He's dark. Yeah, he's dark.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, those are good points that you mentioned. I think
that's a really important note to almost end on now, because I think we've thoroughly discussed what we want to see in the Moon Knight show, and we went on tangents here and there talking about the comics and personal opinions, which I think is great, and I've loved having you on.
I love it.
Thank you. Like, it's such a fun experience to have someone who is as much as a fan as me, so we can just go on these long discussions, sort of thing.
Yeah. Look, don't thank me. I thank you for having me on as well. I love like, I love geeking out and talking with someone, that is on the same level, and we can make references to stuff, and it, we both get what we're saying. It's just so much fun. I could go for hours. So.
I would love to have you on again, of course. And
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah.
I would love to do a video with you after the Moon Knight season 1 comes out, and we almost compare it to this. What did they do? Cool. What have they done? That sort of thing. And I thought something where I was like, I'd love to do a video with you where I just discuss my Moon Knight pitches with you. Just as a fan.
That'd be awesome.
I say it like to Dan, I always just shout my Moon Knight pitches at him. And he reads, like he's read probably as much Moon Knight as I have.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like there's not the passion there. So if I
So he's not like a fan, right? No.
No. But it's like...
No, okay.
We share a Comixology account, and because I've bought loads of Moon Knight, he's like, oh yeah, I'll read them as well. That sort of thing. But just having someone who's a Moon Knight fan to be like, here you go, here's my entire idea, could be a fun idea.
Yeah. That'd be great. I love your pitch anyway. Like of the old man Moon Knight. That was good.
Oh, that is literally in my notes. A note that just says old man Moon Knight, and I was like, what about Moon Knight in like both as an old man in the current idea, but then in the old man Logan universe? What did he do? Like, that's just fun ideas I've had. So I really want to thank you for coming on, and
thank you.
Pitch your show a minute. Like anything else you want to go, because I will definitely put the link to your show and your Instagram page. Do you have any more social medias I can send people to?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Look, so I always say, like, listeners or anyone keen to chat as well, more comics, 'cause I love talking about not only Moon Knight but a lot of other things as well. On Twitter, Twitter at Rey Pod, REY Pod. That covers my show Into the Night, the Moon Knight podcast, but I do a few others as well. So I actually do The Last Sons of Krypton. It's a Superman podcast.
Really?
I do.
Wow, I never knew that.
Yeah, it's a bit young. The Moon Knight one's the oldest one. And also, To Know Her Is to Fear Her. We do the Spider Woman podcast, which is really interesting. I'm a big fan of Jessica Drew, and she might be getting a movie as well. So very excited about that. And finally, once a month, I'm on a show, The Ultimate Spidercast, and we talk everything Ben Reilly and the Scarlet Spider, another cool spider person I like. But Ray Pod at Ray Pod on Twitter. That's the best way to find me. Otherwise, Into the Night, the Moon Knight podcast. It's at ITK Moon Knight. That's both Instagram and Twitter. But yeah, love my Moon Knight.
All these links will be in the description. I've already followed you on Twitter, so everyone go do that too. And I hope you also subscribe to this channel, and because this will definitely get the most hits. Because you're on it.
Yes.
And Moon Knight. And I love it. So there's going to be a lot more Moon Knight content. I even think me and Dan are going to do reaction videos to every single episode of Moon Knight that comes out. As well as this podcast. So that'll be the only time you'll get 2 videos a week, audience, viewers. Cool. So please like this video if you want more of our discussions. And there you go. Once again, thank you for coming on. Please, everyone, go enjoy his stuff, and thank you for listening.